Hey boys and girls, we are on page 167. We're completing 7.5 today. The purpose of today's lesson is that you guys are going to be using properties of addition to add fractions and mix numbers. So on page 167 for the Step It Out, we have Priya. She's playing a computer game and the experience bar fills to show her experience level. So this is her experience bar, and every time she completes a level, it starts filling in. Okay. The bar fills to 1/5 before completing a level. After completing the level, the bar fills up with another 3/5. As a bonus, it fills an additional 1/10. What is her experience level now? Okay, so it's going to take us step by step to show us how we can find her experience level. Okay, the first part says write an expression to model the situation. So they already have the 1/5 for us that we got. It wants us to model the next two parts. So how many other parts of her experience bar did she fill in? So we can see that from the story, okay, from the situation. We already know we have 1/5. They told us about the 3/5 that they gave her to fill in another, and they also said the additional 1/10. So I'm just going to fill that in right here. The 3/5 and the 1/10. Okay? I'm just putting them in based on the order that they told me in the story. Okay? And that's my expression. Okay? Part B says it wants, based on my expression that I did in part A, it wants to know how can I use the commutative property of addition and the associative property of addition, or both properties, to help me find the sum. Okay, so I'm going to explain what the commutative and the associative properties are. Okay, commutative property just means that I'm going to change the order of my numbers, in this case my fractions, so that their denominators, the ones that have common denominators, are next to each other. Okay, so for this problem, I don't need to do that because I already have my two common denominators next to each other. Okay, the associative property just tells me that I can go ahead and group the common denominators with each other. So in this case, I can use the associative property because right now I have a denominator of 5 and a denominator of 10 grouped together in these parentheses. Okay, commutative property is already being used because the two fractions with the 5 as a denominator are next to each other. The associative property can help me by grouping the 1/5 and the 3/5 because they're easier to add. I don't need to change anything. Okay, so based on my expression that I wrote, how can I use commutative or associative to help me? I can say I can use the associative property, so I'm going to write down AP, okay, because I can group them. Group the 1/5 and the 3/5. Okay, and the way you would do that is just by putting the parentheses. Okay, and that's going to be part C, and that's what part C wants me to do. It says use the properties of addition to group the fractions with common denominators together. So I would go ahead and say, okay, here's my 1/5. Okay, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add it with my 3/5. Okay, so they're already next to each other. I haven't changed the order of anything because they're already set up in the commutative property. Okay, and then I'm going to apply the associative property by putting parentheses around the 3/5 and the 1/5 instead of the 3/5 and the 1/10. Okay, now it wants me to find the sum of the fractions that are in the parentheses. So I can easily do this now. I can do 1/5 plus 3/5 and I can get 4/5. And then the 1/10 just stays where it is. And then all I would have to do here is now make them equivalent fractions, okay? So let me zoom in so I can write a little better. This is supposed to be a 4. So now for the next part, it says write equivalent fractions with like denominators. So I can't make this 10 a 5 because the 1 stays a 1. I can't divide it by anything, but I can multiply this by 2. So I can have 8/10 plus 1/10, and that would give me 9/10. Okay, so part of it is just a sum. And then finally it says, what is Priya's level experience now? 9/10. Okay, now you would say 9/10, and then you have to label it. Okay, now that it's bringing it back specific to Priya's experience, you have to go back and say, well, what were they looking for in my label? Okay, as a bonus, it fills 1/10. What is your additional experience level now? So you could say 9/10 is her experience level, or you could say 9/10 of the bar, because that's what this is representing. Okay, make sure you're always giving a label to your answers if it is a word problem. Okay, on the next page, it's kind of very similar. It just wants to see how can you use those properties. Okay, so let's go through it very quickly. It wants me to add 1 and 5/9, 3 and 5/6, 1 and 2/9. The first part says use a communicative property of addition to put the fractions with the same denominators next to each other. So here, which two fractions or mixed numbers have the same denominator? Put them next to each other. Then for part B, it says use the associative property of addition and parentheses to group the fractions. So here you want to use parentheses to group fractions with the same denominator. So once you have changed the order of these, and remember, the whole numbers stay with the fraction. You can't just say, okay, 5/9, you stay here. I'm going to bring this 2/9 over here and then leave this 3 here. It's 1 and 5/9, 3 and 5/6, 1 and 2/9. They move together. Okay? And then step by step, add the ones that are inside the parentheses. What's the equivalent fraction with like denominators? Find the sum. Okay? So kind of use the same steps that I just went through for number 1. Okay? And here it tells you exactly what to do for communicative. It says the ones next to each other with the same denominator. Associative, put the ones with the same denominators with fractions. Okay? On the bottom over here for the check understanding, it has Michael plans to hike from the ranger station to the mountaintop. Okay, so here is the ranger station, and this is the mountaintop. The map shows the lengths of the different parts of the trail. What is the distance in miles from the station to the mountaintop? So basically going from the station to the trailhead, from trailhead to overlook, and from overlook to mountaintop. How long is it total in miles? Okay, and again, when we're adding, no matter which way you add these fractions, at the end of the day, you're going to get the same answer. Okay? The rules of the communicative property and the associative property are just, I guess, suggestions or tips to help you group numbers so it's easier for you to do it. It's not impossible. You didn't have to do 1/5 and 3/5 added together first. You could have changed this into 6/10, added that with the 1/10, and then again changed this to 2/10 and still gotten the 9/10. But it was a lot easier and less math to do it this way if you just add the ones that have the same denominator first and then convert later. Okay? And then again for right here for numbers 2, 3, and 4 for the check understanding, it's the same thing. They already have it set up for you, okay, in specific ways. You can go ahead and solve it the way you want. You can remove the parentheses from here, organize it so you do 3/5 plus 4/5 first, and then change your denominator so you can add a half to that and find your answer. Same thing with this one. Here they don't have it in any order. You can go ahead and switch them and add your parentheses after. Okay? On the next page, it's the same thing. We have Marcel trying to buy fabric to decorate a set of school. You have to add the different types of fabric yards to figure out how much did he buy. It's the same thing here. Explain which property of addition you could use to find the sum. And then you are just going forward again. It wants to know the perimeter of the flower bed. Okay, you just want to know the outline of here. So I'm just adding those sides, and then here you're just practicing addition. Okay, if you want to use the properties and rearrange these, go ahead. If you want to add them the way they are, that's fine too. Okay, just double check your work. As always, boys and girls, if you have questions, please message, and I will see you at 1 p.m. for our video conference. Bye-bye.